All right. So sorry, I didn't have any intro music hooked up. I'll put that in after. But welcome. We're on episode 8 of the Access podcast. We're here with Heather Kovacs from the Boathouse by the lake in Canberra. So thank you very much for joining us, Heather.
No worries. Happy to be here.
Yeah, nice. So you've just finished your qualification. How was that?
Yes, I have. I finished it something like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, yep.
It's been really, really great. Obviously the feeling of completion is very nice.
Yeah.
But whole experience was great. Obviously with COVID threw a bit of a works in there at some point in time. But other than that,
cool. And you were saying the other day that it's you're keen for more study. Yeah.
Yes.
Glutton for punishment.
Yes. As soon as I finished, I was like, I have all this free time to do nothing with now, so I may as well study more while I'm in the study mood. Yeah,
great. So I was hoping we could wind the clock back right to the beginning. So we ran into you first through the Hot Start program.
Yes.
So explain what that was like, what it was, and what happened.
It was a while ago now.
Yeah.
I first met you guys in Hot Start, which was I first met you in the first round of Hot Starts.
Yeah.
Like the guinea pig Hot Start.
Yeah.
And so I was still in college back then. And at that point in time, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yep.
I was, studying hospitality, a whole bunch of range of things. And it was coming to the end of year 12 and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, this Hot Start thing came up and, my teacher was like, hey, you should really get into this. And even if you just do it just for the sake of having that experience, then it's fine. But if you get something out of it, then that's great also.
Yep.
I was like, oh yeah, look, that sounds amazing. So went into the Hot Start program and all these famous chefs are there from around Canberra, which was now my boss. So John Leverick, obviously over at the Boathouse as well. I was paired up with him and one thing led to another and he was like, hey, I think you should come work for me as an apprentice. And that's kind of where my career path took off. So
cool.
It's definitely all thanks to Hot Start because it definitely wouldn't have happened if that didn't happen.
Yeah, no way. That's cool. So what about before that? Was there an interest in cooking? I think I remember reading, it was maybe a Canberra Times article about you that was, you were explaining MasterChef was a big inspiration. Was that you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I did a Young Chefs thing. What year was it now? Maybe 2021.
Mm-hmm.
They asked us to write an article about ourselves and asked us to just write a little splurge about us.
Yeah.
And I definitely had a passion for cooking, obviously, before I started where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if that's the road I wanted to take in my career.
Yeah.
I had been studying hospitality since year 9.
Yeah.
So I'd been studying it for a few years before and I was already in the industry. So I was already a barista before I got my current job.
Yep.
So it was obviously something that I wanted to take a part into.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know if I definitely wanted to take that path. But then it just happened and then.
Yeah. So how did reality reconcile with, I guess, the inspiration that you got from things like MasterChef and I guess whatever other inspirations? Or did you have any other inspirations? I think I'm painting it a bit like MasterChef was everything, but I guess what were the original inspirations before all of this?
I don't really know. I think I had a lot of inspirations to do a lot of things. So I don't think hospitality was my main focus at that point in time.
Yeah.
I think it was mainly just because, when you're in year 12, everyone's like, oh, you got to find a full-time job. You got to go to uni. You got to study more. And I was kind of just at that point where, I was coming to the end of year 12. I still hadn't figured out what I wanted to do. Did I want to go to uni and study or did I want to go down the hospitality path or something like that,
Yep.
which I ended up doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't a lot of inspiration to go down the hospitality path. There was obviously that spark there that I had.
Yeah.
Like, I love cooking and I've always loved cooking.
Yeah.
Whether it be just like at home or like as a job as I do now. But I didn't really have, like, I had that spark, but I didn't really have the specific drive to go to one point in time to go down the chefing career.
Yeah. So, like, comparing the I guess the choice between doing a uni pathway and the pathway that you've taken, was that like opportunity, or like what was I guess what did anything factor into that decision? Did you actively not want to go to uni, or?
I did not really want to go to uni.
Yeah.
Because through college I did a tertiary package, and everyone's like, oh, you have to do a tertiary package to get into uni, which obviously is a big hand in it. So I did it just in case I like somewhat felt like going to uni at the end of year 12, but it was getting to the point where, I had to make a decision and put in entry forms, and I was like, oh, I don't think uni's for me. I don't.
What
really
were you
wanna
preparing
go.
for if you did go to uni?
If I did go to uni, a completely different path. So I probably wanted to study something like sports education or something like that.
Oh, cool. So is that another passion of yours, is sports?
Yeah, so I really wanted to go into physiotherapy. That's one thing that I wanted to do. There was another thing that I wanted to do at one point in time too. I can't remember. Yeah, but I was going to go to uni, but the spark wasn't really there. And like, I had a job as a barista and I was loving that. So before the opportunity came up with John at the Boathouse, I had originally planned to just take a gap year and work full-time at my barista job for just a year to just sort out what things happened and, what opportunities arose from that. And then it turned out that, Hot Start came out and, John was like, hey, you should really come and work at the Boathouse. And I was like, look, I have no definitive plans from here of where I want to go. So I'm happy to go try chefing. I've never actually considered it as an option until now. And maybe I should. And so obviously started working there and I absolutely loved it.
So it was like an immediate, like you took to it immediately? Was it a...
Yeah, I did. I'd like to say that I took it to immediately, but I definitely loved it.
In terms of like liking it, sort of.
Definitely. It's definitely something that I felt like I fell right into, and then I felt like, oh, I could do this for the rest of my life. Like I really like this,
cool.
and I really like being in the kitchen and working in a kitchen, and
So one thing I've noticed about the Boathouse is the crew's very static. It's not like I've been going in there for years, and the staffing body doesn't change that much.
No, not too much. No.
So and I imagine because it's an awesome place to work. So maybe if you could tell me a bit about what that's like. What's the culture? What keeps you there?
I think everyone that works at the Boathouse is great.
Yep.
So everyone there, they're such a massive part of a team, and they feel like your family, obviously, because you're spending so much time with them. But it gets to a point where if you're spending so much time with them, you want them to be, people you can chat to, people you can get along with. And they really are just a close-knit family that we all stick together with and work together with and bounce off ideas with. And it's just there's no fighting, there's no conflict. Yeah. It's just if there is conflict, we're just look, okay, take a step back and think about it. And and then it gets resolved, and everyone there is just great, great attitude to things, great positivity.
So I do notice when I go in there, sometimes I'll come in when it's it's a little bit busy or something like that, and everyone seems, chill's the wrong word, but it's in control. Everyone sort of knows what they're doing. There's no running around sort of thing, which is
So when I first started, there was definitely a mix of different chefs. So when I first started, it was definitely more towards like I was the youngest person there and the inexperienced person, and everyone else was, like they've been qualified for 5-10 years.
Yep.
So that probably definitely helped me get into it because they were all like very like understanding of my position, and they didn't know, like they knew that I didn't know anything, and they were happy to teach me.
Yeah, cool.
And now like it's changed a little bit. We have not a very young staff group, but towards the younger side, so like early 20s, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're all great, like they know what they're doing, and they know how to work in a team, and they know like, oh, okay, like I'm not sure how to do this, I'll listen to someone else. And like the group dynamic is really good at the moment, and we all just work together well as a team, and listen to each other and respect each other. And I think that's a massive part of what makes the Boathouse so approachable and good as a team environment.
Yeah, cool. So I was hoping we could wind the clock back again. So at the start of your studies, so
yes,
and I guess I think I've asked this in every single podcast so far, but tell us about, because when you started was right at like bushfire, COVID, lockdown.
Yeah, that's right.
And then there was like weirdness with the course you had to roll into as well.
Yeah, there was. So when I first started, I think I started the February before COVID hit.
Yeah.
So COVID hit in March that year, and I enrolled in February because I was, I had to finish working at my other job before I started my apprenticeship. So I started, during the bushfire season right before COVID.
Yeah.
And I think at that time they had actually cut costs to the Cert IV certificate.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, we were like, oh, well, do we pay, $3,000 or whatever dollars it was to do the Cert 3, or do we pay this like $500 for the Cert 4?
Yeah.
And you can get your Cert 3 within it.
Yeah.
So that was the obvious go.
Yeah.
At that point in time, I was kind of just like, oh, I'll just do it because it's cheaper.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I wanted to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But then, further down the track when I was studying more into more of the Cert 4 stuff, so more of the like management and, costing, stuff like that, I was like, oh, I'm actually really glad that I enrolled in the Cert 4 instead of just the Cert 3 because,
cool.
I feel like I'm getting a lot more out of this, and I feel like I'm learning more how to be like more of the management position, which is where I would like to go.
Yeah, cool. So how did you find your studies? Because there was I guess there was a few sort of challenges along the way, in particular like motivation. I remember sort of early days you were just having trouble getting going.
Yeah, especially especially since COVID hit right as I signed up.
Yeah.
So I think I only actually worked 1 week full time at my job.
Yeah. And
then we immediately went into lockdown and then just had 3 months off. So it kind of, during those 3 months, like I felt it hard to actually come to the terms that I was an apprentice and that I should be studying.
Yeah.
Like obviously the work was there. But I wasn't like in the mood, like not in the mood, but like not in the study motivation loop. Like I hadn't been working that much. Yeah. Like I only worked 1 week full time.
Yeah.
And I just like kind of felt a little bit lost within that first initial lockdown period.
Yeah.
But then coming back after the lockdown period and like actually working full time and getting more into it, that's obviously where some of the motivation came back in because I was like, oh, I'm actually working and I really should do this and I should, I should actually, do my studies and stuff like that.
So did you find did you find it relevant? Like, did you find the studies sort of like relevant to what you were doing at work and vice versa? Yeah.
So, obviously with the Cert 3 you go through every single like section in the kitchen. So you have, your meat section, your veggie section, pastry section. And when I was studying all the different sections, it just happened to be that I was moved to that exact section in the kitchen during that time. Or like I would, like if I got moved on to like studying the meat section, then I would obviously ask you guys, I'd be like, hey, I'm going on to the meat section. Can I like get all the meat section components to study? So the way I did it that way was actually really good because when I was working on the units that I was studying. So it felt more like not complete, but coherent, and like it felt like that I was actually putting my studies to work, like, and I was bringing it to work, and I was able to, you know, keep one mindset rather than like bouncing all over the place in different areas of study.
Yeah. Cool. And so, actually, maybe if we could get a bit of background on the boathouse. So, for those that are uninitiated, tell us about the boathouse. You know, what I guess products and services, and how long are you working in a week, and that sort of thing. And
so we vary depending on.
I guess
season.
more like what sort of hours do you cover, not as opposed to how often you work.
Yeah, So we vary depending on season. So obviously winter, you know, everyone doesn't really want to go out; they want to stay inside. So we get a bit more quiet in winter. So in winter we'll, you know, work your basic like 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Coming into summer, especially Christmas time, where everyone's like, I want to have a party. I want to go out and have a Christmas party.
Yeah.
You know, we get a lot busier during summer, and obviously wedding season as well, because we're a wedding venue. So in summer we do maybe around 60 hours.
Yep.
Depending on the week, depending on how much functions we have booked.
Yep.
But yeah, and on top of, you know, all the weddings and functions we do have our restaurant that we run.
Yep.
And that is, you know, Thursday to Sunday run restaurant, you know, Thursday to Saturday night, and then Friday to Saturday lunch. And
so your venue consists of like, it's either one big room or like two. What's the breakup of that?
So we can have 3 individual rooms. So we have one smaller room. So when you enter, it's right to the right. Mm-hmm. And then if you go straight along when you enter, there's either one large room, depending on the functions, or we can divide it into 2 smaller rooms. Yep. Yeah. So we have 3 that we can book out for functions. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And like menu-wise, it's sort of like, I guess, modern Australian fine dining based, would you say?
Yeah, with a little bit of Asian influence here and there.
Yeah.
Obviously, so John obviously runs Ramen Daddy as well.
Yes.
So he's very into the like Asian influences. Mm-hmm. And that's probably where that passion came from. Yeah. But it's definitely seen in our menu from time to time, the like little bit of Asian twist, but it's mostly modern Australian fine dining,
And then you get the summertime bar out the back too.
Yes. I forgot about that.
As an Armada.
Yes, Armada Outdoor Bar. Which is a pop-up summer outdoor bar. Yeah.
So I guess where I was going with that is that's a lot of stuff to be doing. And what was it like integrating your studies into a schedule like that?
Especially during summertime when we get really busy.
Yep.
It's definitely hard to, you know, find time to actually, you know, take an hour and sit down and just like study for an hour. But like at that point in time, the extra hour you have on top of work, you kind of just want to go, okay. Like you just want to relax. But, which I found really difficult because, you know, the first like year or so during my studies, like I just felt like we were so like pushed for time and there was no time to just sit down. But towards the end, it was really like I kind of found a groove where I would get into. So I said to myself, okay, like whatever time I start, I will, you know, try and aim to get to work like an hour early, just so, you know, like it probably helped because I would miss the peak hour traffic in the morning, which was a plus. So if I got to work an hour early, like I just, you know, spend a little bit of that hour or that hour studying just whatever arose. And if I
Yeah.
got something done, then that was
Yeah.
great. But if I didn't get anything done, then, you know, at least I was, you know, ready to study
Yeah.
in that way. And I was getting myself into a routine of, I start at 10 o'clock. Cool. I'll get to work at 9 and I'll study. And like,
Yep.
I was getting into that routine. And then anytime, you know, we'd have some sort of break during our days or during our work week, I would be like, oh, okay, like you guys can go off and do something else, but like I'm going to stay here and I'll study for a bit. Like even if I just, you know, open my laptop and look at it, I'd still like sitting down and making the effort to study. And I didn't beat myself up over sitting down and just looking at my laptop, because at least I was then actually like getting it out and like attempting to study.
Yeah, it's cool. So just establishing the habit, sort of regardless of that's cool. So and beyond study, what's work-life balance like if for you? You mentioned sports and things like that.
Yes. So before I started working at the boathouse, I played soccer a lot. So I would train 2 times a week, play game. So obviously I had to stop that when I started full-time work at the boathouse. Yeah. Because obviously soccer training is, you know, during the week and the games are on weekends, and you know, you can never get weekends off in hospitality. Everyone knows that. And so I had to stop that. In terms of work-life balance, I think before I started at the boathouse, I was pretty work-driven anyway. Yeah. Okay. Because I had already been working a few years as a barista before that. And I would put like all my spare time into that. Yeah. Okay. Don't know why, but I think I've just always been like that work-driven person.
Yeah, cool. So it's just something inherent in you. Like, is it like a, pardon me for prying, but is it like a financial thing? You like squirreling away money or
no, not particularly. Yeah. I think I just enjoy, you know, like being at work and interacting with people. Yeah, yeah. Especially as my job as a barista, I liked the like interacting with people, like front of house wise, and I liked you know finding regulars and like making their day, but just like having a chat to them and like knowing their regular order and like so I think that was like it wasn't money related or anything. I think it was just.
Do you miss the customer facing aspect?
Yes.
In the kitchen?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think I did a few shifts at Ramen Daddy where John works now. Well, not works now, but owns. Yep. And they were like, hey, you have front of house experience. Like, we'll get you to do like a front of house shift there. Yep. Like instantly it just was like, oh, I really miss this working in the kitchen because, you know, I like that customer experience and making people happy by just like giving them food, which they enjoy. And yeah,
that's cool. So what next in terms of your, so you've studied and I guess you've achieved your trade qualification. So what are do you have any career aspirations? You want, like, you know, I guess, you know, for a lot of young chefs, maybe a business might be the end goal or something like that. Or
so when I started the boathouse, I kind of, you know, had a small aspiration somewhere to, you know, open a restaurant or a cafe along down the line. Yep. But that was obviously something that, you know, wasn't in reach and wasn't within reach because, you know, I was so young and I didn't really have any qualifications or I hadn't really learned that much at that point in time. But look, now that I've finished studying, it's definitely something that I would like to do. Whether it like happens or not is a different story altogether. But I would like to, you know, someday like run a cafe or run a restaurant somewhere. That would be fairly nice. But like within the next 5 years or so, I would like to be like somewhere probably within like more management position. Yeah. Yep. As much as I love working in the kitchen and I probably still would work in the kitchen, I want to be more of the like, not really double agent, but like being like between front of house and back of house.
Yeah. Okay.
whether that be like going into more of a sous chef position, so being able to communicate with like front of house and like sort out different functions and, you know, manage that side of way, or whether that be like maybe going into more front of house management, or where you're still communicating with the kitchen, but, you know, you still have that more customer based management. Yeah, I haven't really decided definitively though.
Yeah. So I guess on that subject, you've got some, I guess a pretty amazing collection of mentors there,
Yes.
you know, in terms of John, James, Jack as well. So maybe you could reflect on those guys, you know, I guess, you know, what you got out of them and that sort of thing, or, you know, it's,
So, who do I start with? So James obviously owns the boathouse. He does a lot of the office management. He's just, you know, is on top of everything all the time.
Yep.
Especially like, you know, with different management things and office work. He just knows exactly what the customers want, and he knows exactly like what we should deliver to them. And it's definitely something that I've taken away from him, because he's definitely, as I said, on top of everything. And
did you
knows
consult
what
with him much
want.
during your Cert IV studies? Like the
not too much. He's a very busy man.
Yeah.
So he's definitely all over the place.
Yeah.
I think he opened up the new bar, Margot.
Oh yeah, I rode my push bike past that this morning.
Yeah,
like near the grass skate ramp.
Yeah. So he's trying to like bounce between Boathouse and that. Yeah. But like he does an amazing job. As far as I know, like Margot is doing great.
Yeah.
And obviously Boathouse is doing great, so he must be doing a great job there somewhere.
Yeah.
But he just knows exactly what customers want, and knows exactly, you know, what we should be giving them. And it's great in that sense, because, you know, it's great to have that person that communicates with the customers and communicates with us really well. So we know how to please the customer well in that way. Oh man, who's next? John is great. Yeah. You know, he's been a really great mentor to me my whole apprenticeship, the whole time I've known him. Yeah. He's always, you know, like, you got to push yourself just that little bit more. And like, at first I was like, do I really want to? But like now looking back at it, it's been absolutely great, because he was the one. So I did a competition last year.
Yes. I forgot to ask about that. So we'll
Yeah, continue. So I did the competition last year, and he was the one who's like, look, even if you don't get anything out of it, you know, you could still just go in it and say you did something. And that turned out awesome, an amazing experience. So I'm so glad he's always been the one to just push you into, you know, things that you might not be comfortable with, but like he knows that it's going to be like a good experience down the line, and he knows you're going to be a better person for it. Yeah. So obviously doing like those sort of things and him pushing me has been like really great. And I don't think that I would be the type of chef I would be without him, because he's been such a great inspiration and push to me my whole apprenticeship.
Cool. So what characteristics, I guess, when you say the type of chef that you are, what are the characteristics I guess you're most proud of?
Oh man, that's a really hard one.
Or if you see it in other chefs, you know, what do you think makes a good chef?
Definitely. So, in terms of, I find a really good leader inspirational, because obviously that's the type of person that I want to become, and stuff like that. So, just a person who knows how to lead a kitchen right is really like inspirational for me. Yeah. And Jack and John, they are both amazing at running a kitchen. Yep. They both know exactly like what needs to be said at what time. Yep. You know, they both coordinate efforts really well.
Yeah.
They know how to.
They always seem, whenever I talk to them, cool as cucumbers too.
Yeah.
Like you could like explode the building and they should be like, yep, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I think with such a young team on at the moment, I think that's also a really good thing because they keep their cool and they know, oh yeah, okay, so things go wrong, but also this is how you should do it just to avoid that going wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just both great leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really look up to them in that sense because, you know, obviously someday I would like to be in their position, but
Yeah, cool. So so the chef's comp, to tell us, so what was that, Apprentice of the Year or Golden Chef's Hat?
So that was the Tabasco apprenticeship competition.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
How was that? So because you got sent away, you like won a heat and then got sent away.
Yeah, so they do regional competitions.
Yep.
So that's when John was like, hey, this ACT competition is coming up. You should just compete in it just for the sake of competing in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Okay, sure. If I don't win, then I say that I competed in it. But if I do, then I don't know.
Yeah.
So, went into it with like a very minimal knowledge of how competitions work.
Yep.
I had no idea how competitions work at that point in time. I had barely done any. I barely did any preparation for it.
Yeah.
In terms of like cooking wise, I think I only like practiced my food that I was cooking like twice maybe.
Yeah.
Because I was working as well.
Yeah.
So, and then went into it with like little knowledge, and I think the only person that wasn't in CIT because it was at the competition was at the CIT building.
Yeah.
And then went into it, and then by some magical odd chance actually happened to win the ACT competition.
Yeah, cool.
By absolute fluke. I think I didn't even know where I went right in that competition, but
What did you make? Do you remember?
So yes, I so the only thing that we had to cook with was a whole chicken and Tabasco, because obviously the Tabasco was their like sponsor of the whole competition. So we had to cook an entree and a main with one chicken, so 2 serves of an entree and 2 serves of a main with one chicken. And so what I ended up cooking was I did chicken dumplings with a broth. Obviously, it had to have Tabasco in there, so I put Tabasco in the dumplings.
Yeah.
And then because I made my entree so complex, because you had to make dumplings.
Yeah.
I ended up just doing a simple, roast chicken with like lentils and roast veggies and stuff like that. So that's what I ended up cooking for that competition.
Yeah, cool. So what was the any, I guess, memorable parts of the process? Any like sort of like nervous moments or like happy moments or?
Yeah, definitely. So the nervous moments, I was in a new kitchen that I've never cooked in before.
Yep.
And I had no idea, where things were. I had to keep asking the CIT teachers, because before the competition they gave us a list of equipment that would be available to us. And I walked around the kitchen so many times trying to look for this equipment, and I was like, oh, it's not here. So I had multiple times I had to go up to the CIT teachers and was like, they said that this would be available, and I had practiced with this, and do you have this available like within some other kitchen that is here? So that was definitely a stressful bit, because I think that's what made me felt like I didn't do a great job, because I was running around trying to find different equipment at the same time and like trying to cook and so that was definitely a stressful experience. But at the end of it, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. I actually got them up on time, and, I don't think I was too proud of the dumplings I made, because I wasn't happy with the dumpling dough. But,
What was wrong?
I think it was just, it wasn't tough enough, and it wasn't thin enough. So I think I made it too thick, but yeah.
So what did you? Was that like a hand, like rolling pin, or yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Dumplings.
So in terms of these competitions, so do you recommend doing it? Do you wish you did more, or like would you recommend other apprentices get stuck in?
Look, so after winning the ACT comp, I obviously got sent off.
Oh yeah, sorry, I cut you off from the rest of the story.
Yeah, so after winning the ACT, I obviously got sent off to Melbourne, where I competed in the national competition. So that was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, cool.
You know, being sent off to Melbourne with like people that were in the same situation from me from like all across Australia. It was so great to meet them. Like I still have contacts with them today.
Yes.
Even though I, you know, didn't see them since last year. But yeah, no, like they're all great, and like just being able to, you know, just be in the same room with them and compete in the same room and be in the same situation as them was really great. Like even if, so I didn't win the national competition. I think I came second in the national competition though.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, it was just great, you know, being with the same people that were in like the same boat as me and like having the same experience, and you know, we were all stressed to compete in this national competition and like we all had the same experiences, and it was just fantastic. So as far as, you know, competitions would go, I don't think that I would compete in more. Like I would think about it, but you know, I think one's enough for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would definitely suggest that more people compete in competitions, because it's not about winning. It's about, you know, meeting the people along the way and like creating those relationships with people, because as I said, the people that I met from all across Australia down in Melbourne, like they're absolutely amazing people, and like, as I said, I still have contacts with them today, and like at the end of, you know, spending I think it was a weekend with them, you know, we all said to each other, we're like, look, if you're ever in like Adelaide, you should like contact me, and you're 100% welcome to stay with me. And so, it wasn't about winning the competition. It was just about making those relationships along the way. So. Yeah,
I'd imagine there'd be quite high value in testing yourself in those sort of unsupervised conditions,
definitely.
Without chef going, oh, do that.
Yeah.
And so what was that part like?
So the actual competition, like, I think I would like to say that I pride myself in like organization and like keeping nice and neat and tidy. Like, I'm not sure if people can like say that for me, but I would like to say that. So that was one thing that I felt was easy with the competition. The other thing that I felt was like a bit of a challenge and was hard was keeping up to the time frames that they set for you. Especially in Melbourne, they didn't have a massive clock in front of us, which was a thing that we were really adamant about, because I think everyone that I was with, you know, we'd all practice with clocks right in front of our face. So we knew exactly like, you know, when we should start doing like a specific task or something like that. But, you know, I think in Melbourne they actually ended up just writing how many minutes we had left on a whiteboard. And then all of a sudden you'd look over and it's like, 10 minutes left till you have to serve entree. And we're like, oh my gosh, where did the time go? So the time constraints was a bit of a challenge. And also just adapting to different work conditions is a very different, it's a bit of a challenge as well, because obviously you practice with a certain oven and you practice with a certain stove or something like that. But, you know, you're not going to have those exact conditions when you're working in a competition, which is something that I felt and that I found really hard, especially in Melbourne, because, you know, the pop-up kitchen that they had there was like, I don't think the ovens got past 200 degrees or something like that, or something crazy. And like I had practice cooking the chicken at like 210 degrees. So it was like, it threw it off just a little bit. And that was definitely a challenge to try and combat that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amongst your fellow competitors, were there any juicy meltdowns that you saw?
No, actually.
Yeah,
Everyone
okay.
actually kept their composure really well. I think because I went with a bunch of, so I at the time was competing as a second year.
Yep.
And so they had the first years, the second years obviously, and the third years as well. And like even the first years who like have had, minimal experience in a kitchen, they did incredibly well.
Yeah, cool.
Like especially, as first years who have just, come into the industry. They kept their composure so well.
Yeah, nice.
And performed so well. And I think that's like another thing that especially all of us with it feeling before we competed were like, oh no, we're not going to do well. We're really stressed. But like as soon as you get into the zone of cooking and just something that you love doing, like you actually find your composure really well.
Yeah.
Even though you're in a stressful situation, you just go, okay, but at least I'm like cooking this.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of performance too, isn't it? If you, I think it'd be a bit unnatural not to be nervous. It sort of keeps you on the edge and shows that you care, I guess, that sort of thing. But what was I going to ask you next? Oh, I forgot. Oh, that's right. So, I guess this is the sort of cliche questions now. So, things like as a chef and a cook, what do you like to cook? And has your tastes changed along with your developing skills and things like that?
This is actually something that we were having a conversation at work the other day.
Yeah.
So the question was, if you had to specialize in something and if you had to become like a specialized chef, like what would you specialize in?
Yeah.
And I said,
So it's like the one dish only sort of chef?
Yeah, kind of. So like if you had to be like just a meat chef for the rest of your life or like just a pastry chef or something like that. So if you would have asked me at the start of my apprenticeship, I would probably said like a veg chef, like something that does like sauciers or something.
Yeah.
Because that's the road that I was going down, and that's kind of where I was put at the time.
Yeah.
But if you ask me now, like I think I spent about 6 months doing just dessert and pastry work.
Yep.
And I absolutely fell in love with just making pastry.
Yeah.
Like there's so much
the sequencing is cool
going into it. Like it's just there's just something about like putting so much time and effort and skill into making a pastry, like just a basic puff pastry. Like and I absolutely like fell in love with just making pastries. Like it was something like that. As soon as I started doing it, I was like, oh, I actually really love doing this. Like if I had to specialize in something, that's what my answer would be. I think that I would specialize in probably like patisserie and like pastry making. Were you
scared of pastry and desserts before you got into them?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. So I had the same thing. I was like, man, I'm getting my head kicked in enough with normal savory cooking. Yeah. And desserts just seems like this whole other world.
Yeah.
And then pastry, a whole other world. And
you're always told, you can be a bit like free willy with like savory stuff and you don't have to measure stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But with desserts, you have to like measure everything down to the T and you can't be over and stuff like that. But there's like, as much as that sounds daunting from someone who hasn't done pastry before, as soon as you go into doing pastry, it's soothing in a way because like,
much more controlled. Hey,
exactly.
Predict the outcomes.
Because sometimes with savory, it's always like, oh, if I roast this chicken, like the oven could like vary in temperatures or stuff like that. And like, it's not perfect all the time. But with pastry, if you put so much time and effort into, weighing everything correctly and doing every step correctly, then you pretty much get a perfect outcome every time. I don't know. Yeah, it's just something soothing about, making pastry and like folding and like putting all the effort into something. And
did you find the habits and the skills transferred back into your savory cooking?
Yeah, definitely. So Yeah. Yeah, especially a lot of the like precise things. Like you take a lot more appreciation into things being like precise and perfect at that point in time. So like, especially with, you know, some things in pastry, like, you know, doing, you know, like heating sugar to a certain degree. Like, you find that, you know, if you heat the sugar to a, you know, just 1 degree over where you want it to be, then like the whole outcome changes.
Yeah.
So taking that into savory food, it's very, so if I fry this for like just 1 second longer, then I get a whole different outcome. And you actually find the different like little finer details in the savory cooking after doing pastry, I find. Yeah,
because that's what I found. There was a in particular like seasoning ratios. So like you can look and stuff. It's like, oh, how much does that weigh? Oh, it needs that much salt. Oh, it needs that much sugar.
Yeah,
and it's like this sort of like strange like confidence that comes with that.
Yeah,
you know, which is pretty cool. Cool. Well, I think I've asked everything of you that I wanted. Is there anything you wanted to get off your chest while you're here?
Not really.
Yeah.
No.
Cool.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I can say is like with you guys and through my work, I think that I have had such an amazing apprenticeship.
Oh, cool.
Especially with opportunities. Like, as I said earlier, like I don't think that I would be at the Boathouse without you guys, because obviously you guys started Hot Start, and you know, with the opportunities that I've had at the Boathouse, like I've done, I did the Young Chef's Dinner back in 2021.
Yep.
I actually filmed an ad with one of our work suppliers.
Oh, yeah.
So, they're going around Australia at the moment, you know, selling their product, which is black garlic.
Yep.
And, you know, like, I helped them by filming an ad for them, and like they take that ad with them wherever they go, and I think with
you mentioned Hot Start. I think we'd be remiss not to mention Paul Butler.
Absolutely.
Tell me a bit about Paul Butler and I guess your experiences with him along the way.
He's such a great mentor.
Yeah.
I think he didn't actually come into my apprenticeship until towards the end.
Yeah.
He kind of saw that I was, you know, struggling with how to get, you know, like work-study balance and how to do that. So he was like, hey, like, look, if you need help, just send me a message at any point in time and I'll reply and I'll try and help you with whatever you're stuck on. And it got to a point where I would just be like, oh, hey, I'm like a little bit stuck on exactly what like details you want for this question. Like, and he would, you know, be there and reply to me even on weekends, you know.
Yeah.
But he's such a great mentor. He actually really helped me a lot during my apprenticeship, especially towards the end. Such a great guy.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's everything. I'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time, Heather.
That's okay.
That was awesome.
I was happy to come.
It's a good chat. It's already been almost 50 minutes, so that was a good one. But well, I guess we'll no doubt be seeing lots more of you in the future. And
hopefully, yes.
Yeah. And all the best, and thanks for coming in, hey?
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Ripper.